For 20,000 years, no one had heard a human voice beyond the dead shell of Earth. The Galactic Dominion ruled now, a cold, calculating coalition of alien empires that had carved up the stars long after the fall of mankind. To most species, humans were an old myth, a cautionary tale of an upstart race that burned too brightly and too fast. No one feared them anymore. No one even remembered what a true human warship looked like. That changed in an instant. It was in the Valros Expanse, a forgotten stretch of dead space between trade routes. A lone patrol frigate, manned by a crew of indifferent Skal warriors, picked up a signal. Faint, ancient, and speaking a language their translation grids couldn't pass. At first they laughed. Another cosmic anomaly. Another useless blip. Then the ship appeared. The Dominion's long-range beacons identified it as a vessel of Terran origin. Impossible, they thought. Mankind's fleet had been annihilated millennia ago. This ship was older than any living empire in the stars. But it was no derelict. It was a warship, a heavy-class dreadnought, scarred but intact, emerging from the blackness with engines burning a cold, unnatural blue. Its hull bore no diplomatic codes, no allegiance markings, just the faded emblem of an extinct species, the Eagle of Earth. And it was broadcasting a single message, over and over, on every known frequency. We are returning. We remember. Captain Grant Miles stood at the bridge of that ship, the ISS Revenant, as ancient systems hummed back to life around him. His face was gaunt, eyes sunken but burning with purpose. He had once been a young man when the ship launched. Now, time had twisted everything. For him, the centuries had passed in cold stasis and fragmented consciousness. His mind was stitched with memories of war, of loss, of betrayal. Humanity had not fallen by alien hands. No, it had been betrayed from within. He remembered the day the Dominion's vassals bought out the Terran Council, how Earth's last defenses crumbled not from battle but from treachery. The Revenant had fled then, ordered to escape with its prototype AI and forbidden technologies. They had gone dark, deep into a rift in space-time, trapped in a forced stasis loop that outlasted the civilizations outside. Until the AI, called Juno, had awakened him. Captain, external contact, multiple vessels converging, unknown species signatures. Juno's voice was sharp, cold, not some soothing assistant, but a tactical entity bred for war. Grant's grip tightened on the console. The Dominion had noticed them. No doubt they were scrambling fleets now. A lost Terran warship emerging after 20,000 years. It would unsettle their carefully balanced order. Weapon status? Plasma arrays online. Kinetic batteries restored to 70%. Singularity core, unstable. We can fight. For a time, Grant allowed a grim smile. That would be enough. They weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here to survive. They were here to be remembered. In the heart of Dominion space, the news spread like wildfire. Panic among the merchant houses, urgent military councils. The idea that humans might still live, that one of their legendary ships had returned, sent a ripple of fear through empires long grown complacent. On the flagship Dominus Ascendant, High Lord Kareth, one of the Dominion's most ruthless warlords, reviewed the transmission personally. His scaled fist slammed the table. I want that ship destroyed, publicly, immediately. His advisors warned him. The Terran dreadnoughts were not built like Dominion cruisers. They were brutal, close combat monsters designed to outfight, outgun, and outlast. But Kareth only sneered. They are relics, ghosts. We will crush this human toy and remind the galaxy who rules. Back on the Revenant, Grant stared at the incoming data. 6 enemy ships, fast frigates, cutting through the void. He stood alone on a bridge meant for a crew of thousands, now automated, run by Juno and himself. His ship was old, half dead, but beneath the rust and decay were weapons that modern fleets had never seen, built in a time when humanity had dared to challenge the stars. Juno, ready the main batteries. I want them to know who we are. The AI's voice was cold steel. Confirmed. Targeting solutions locked. Weapons primed. Grant's voice was barely a whisper as the first Dominion frigate entered range. Let's remind them what fear tastes like. The first shot from the Revenant wasn't elegant. It wasn't meant to be. A core plasma round, 20 meters in diameter, ripped through space at impossible velocity, shattering the Dominion frigate's forward shields before the crew had time to scream. The second shot followed. Kinetic slugs designed to penetrate hulls and gut a ship from within. The Dominion vessel split apart like wet paper. One down. Grant stood at the helm, expression carved from stone. His heart wasn't racing. His hands didn't shake. This wasn't adrenaline. It was rage, the kind that came from a species betrayed, left to rot for 20 millennia. Next target, he said, voice rough with the edge of years. Acquiring. Juno's tone remained cold, efficient. Enemy formations adjusting. They are broadcasting demands. Stand down and surrender for decontamination and processing. Grant barked a harsh laugh. They still think we're vermin. The second Dominion ship swung wide, firing pulse beams, brilliant arcs of energy that grazed the Revenant's aging shields. Sparks rained from the upper decks, and hull plating groaned under the assault. But the old warship held. Return fire, Grant ordered. The Revenant's batteries answered. A rapid volley of magnetic torpedoes streaked through the void, finding their mark. The Dominion frigate tried to evade, but too slow. One torpedo impacted amidships, detonating with a force that tore the vessel in half. 2 down. But Grant knew this was only the opening salvo. More signals flooded the tactical grid. Reinforcements, dozens of ships en route. The Dominion would escalate fast. They couldn't allow a human dreadnought to roam free, not after 20,000 years of silence. Grant's fists clenched. They thought this was about survival. It wasn't. It was about memory, about sending a message to a galaxy that had forgotten who humanity was and what they could do. On the Dominus Ascendant, High Lord Kareth paced furiously as reports streamed in. 2 frigates lost? To an ancient wreck? His voice dripped with contempt. The lead strategist, a pale-skinned Varel tactician, chose his words carefully. My lord, Terran dreadnoughts were engineered for brute warfare. Their technology, while old, was built for— I know what they were built for! Kareth roared, claws raking across the console. I want capital ships, carriers, now! The strategist bowed. As you command. Back aboard the Revenant, Juno's avatar flickered on the forward display, an angular, faceless figure wreathed in shadow. Dominion battlecruisers inbound, she announced. Estimated time to contact, 20 minutes. Probability of survival under sustained engagement, 12%. Grant's jaw tightened. Plenty of time to make a statement. He strode across the bridge, boots echoing on the steel floor. Around him, empty stations once manned by proud Terran officers now stood dark. Their faces haunted him. Friends, comrades, dead by betrayal. He stopped before the command interface and keyed in a restricted protocol. Juno, prepare the vault. A long pause. Even the AI seemed to hesitate. Confirming. Are you certain, Captain? Grant's gaze hardened. We didn't crawl out of the dark to die quietly. Deep within the Revenant's core, ancient systems awakened. The vault, a last resort weapon. Not elegant, not precise, but devastating. Back when the Dominion first rose, humanity had forged weapons meant to break empires, not fleets. planet breakers, void storm generators, gravitic imploders. The Dominion's modern forces had never seen these things deployed in real combat. Now they would. The Dominion fleet bore down 6 battlecruisers, 3 carriers, an escort wing of fighters and corvettes, a small armada more than enough to swat a lone dreadnought under normal circumstances. But the Revenant was not normal. On the bridge, Grant stood alone, staring at the incoming swarm. He could almost hear them, those smug alien commanders, laughing in their polished command chairs, certain that a lone relic couldn't defy them. They had no memory of Earth's fury. They would learn. He opened a channel, one way, on all frequencies. When he spoke, the words carried weight, raw and unfiltered. This is Captain Grant Miles of the Terran warship Revenant. You hunted us. You erased us. You forgot us. But we remember, and we are not here to beg. We are here to bury you. The message ended. A cold silence fell across the stars, and then the vault's core began to hum. The hum of the vault resonated through the Revenant's hull like the heartbeat of some long-dead titan. Deep below the bridge, ancient containment fields spun up, drawing raw power from the ship's singularity core. It wasn't clean. It wasn't safe. The vault had been forbidden tech, even in humanity's darkest wars, a weapon never meant to be used again. But Grant didn't care. He stood at the viewport, watching the enemy fleet close in. Dozens of ships, gleaming and modern, their hulls sharp and predatory, products of 20,000 years of galactic dominance. They believed they were unchallenged. They believed humanity was a footnote. Grant would make them bleed for that arrogance. Vault charge at 60%. Juno reported. Main batteries ready. Incoming strike wings detected. On the tactical grid, a swarm of Dominion fighters streaked ahead of the cruisers, wasps sent to cripple the Revenant's outer defenses. Grant's lips curled into a thin smile. Launch countermeasures! The old ship responded with mechanical growls as automated flak cannons spun to life. Blistering walls of kinetic fire swept across the void, shredding the first wave of enemy fighters. Explosions dotted the black like dying stars. But more kept coming. Inside the Dominion fleet, High Lord Kareth leaned forward on his throne-like command chair, eyes blazing. Press the attack. Their defenses are primitive. Overwhelm them. His commanders obeyed, launching more squadrons and ordering the cruisers to spread into an encirclement pattern. Kareth's mind burned with one simple truth. This could not be allowed to stand. If word spread that a human dreadnought had crippled a Dominion fleet, it would fracture their power. Empires ruled on fear, and if the galaxy began to believe in humanity again, the old terrors would return. Aboard the Revenant, the bridge trembled as pulse torpedoes struck the shields. Status indicators flickered. One of the outer sensor arrays went dark. Grant barely flinched. Status, he said, voice low. Shields at 43%. Structural integrity holding. Juno answered. Vault at 90%. Initiating targeting sequence. Grant's fingers hovered over the firing command. His knuckles whitened. He thought of Earth, what little remained of it. A poisoned husk, stripped and broken by collaborators and alien profiteers. He thought of the last stand at lunar shipyards, where the Terran fleet had been betrayed from within. He had watched friends, brothers in arms, burn in orbit, not by Dominion hands, but by the knives of politicians who had sold out their own kind. This was not just war. This was justice. Vault online, Juno confirmed, targeting the enemy command formation. Grant exhaled slowly. Fire. The Revenant shuddered as the vault unleashed its payload. A gravitational imploder, an ancient device meant to weaponize the fabric of space itself. A sphere of collapsing energy bloomed outward, invisible to the naked eye, but lethal beyond comprehension. Dominion sensors caught the anomaly too late. Kareth's battlecruisers twisted in alarm, scrambling to adjust formation. The imploder detonated. Space bent. Hulls screamed. 2 battlecruisers crumpled like tin beneath the force, their cores imploding, debris flaring out into deadly shrapnel fields. On Kareth's flagship, alarms wailed. Officers shouted. The encirclement collapsed in chaos. "What have they done?" Kareth bellowed, slamming his fists down. His second-in-command, face pale, could barely speak. "Lord, they are using weapons we have no counter for. Ancient, forbidden tech." Kareth's breath hissed between sharpened teeth. "Bring in the dreadnoughts, all of them, and I want reinforcements from the homeworld fleet. This human must die." Back on the Revenant, Grant watched the chaos unfold. The enemy formation, once confident and precise, now reeled in disarray. Fighters scattered, cruisers drifted, damaged or disabled. But the enemy would not break so easily. If anything, they would come harder now, with everything they had. And Grant knew this was only the beginning. "More ships incoming," Juno warned. "Heavy-class dreadnoughts. Estimated time to engagement, 15 minutes. Grant wiped sweat from his brow. "Good," he said quietly. The Revenant was not built to win this war. It was built to send a message, to remind the galaxy that humanity had teeth. He opened another broadcast, uncoded, so every ship could hear. "You think time has broken us. You think your empires are safe, but the blood of Earth still burns. If you come ready to die." He cut the transmission and waited for the stars to burn. The stars outside the Revenant seethed with motion. More ships, heavier ships. 4 Dominion dreadnoughts, each a kilometer long, armored in graviton-forged alloys that could shrug off most modern weapons. Their arrival shifted the entire battle's weight, a clear signal. This was no longer a patrol action. The Dominion was sending in executioners. Grant stood at the helm, jaw clenched. His ship groaned beneath him, patched and ancient, its systems barely stable. The vault had drained 1/3 of the core. No more shots like that without risking catastrophic failure. He wasn't blind. He knew the odds, but odds meant nothing to a dead man walking. "Enemy dreadnoughts within weapons range in 8 minutes, Juno reported. "Tactical suggestion: disengage and attempt escape via rift corridor." Grant's laugh was hollow. "Escape? Where exactly would we run to, Juno? The Dominion owns the stars." Strategic withdrawal could allow preservation of unique Terran technology. He cut her off with a growl. "Preserve it for who? There's no Terran Council left, no colonies, no Earth worth saving." He slammed his fist down on the console. "We finish this here. We make them bleed. We remind them, even if it kills us." A pause. Then Juno's voice came softer. "Understood, Captain." Meanwhile, in the heart of the Dominion fleet, High Lord Kareth barked orders. "Hold formation. Do not let this human provoke chaos." But beneath his bravado, a sliver of doubt gnawed at him. 2 battlecruisers gone, dozens of smaller craft lost. And this was a single ancient dreadnought, crewed by one human ghost and his cursed machine. It defied all doctrine. It spat on the Dominion's supposed mastery. And that was dangerous. If word spread that this relic had crippled a fleet, if the lesser races began whispering of human defiance, then Kareth's hold over his sector would fracture. He couldn't allow it. "Deploy the suppression net," he ordered. "Flood their frequencies, jam their systems, cripple their weapons. I want that ship dead within the hour." The suppression net came like a wave, dense electromagnetic pulses blanketing the Revenant's field. Lights dimmed, weapons calibration drifted, targeting reticules wavered. Grant's teeth ground together. The ship's systems were old, but the Dominion's tech was adaptable. "Juno, countermeasures?" "Deploying." Partial compensation achievable. Full shield integrity will not hold. Outside the viewport, the Dominion dreadnoughts advanced in cold formation, their main batteries glowing with charged plasma. Grant drew a breath. He could turn now, fire engines and run for the edges of the system. But that would be surrender. And humanity had already surrendered once, long ago, when the Council knelt and the last resistance was crushed. He had sworn he would never bow again. "Ready all remaining torpedo banks," he said. "Prepare for a charge." Juno hesitated. "A direct engagement is— Do it!" Engines howled to life. The Revenant, scarred and ancient, surged forward into the teeth of the enemy formation. Kareth's eyes widened as the human ship charged instead of fleeing. "Brace for ramming!" shouted a Dominion commander. But the Revenant didn't ram. It unleashed everything. Broadside kinetic slugs, plasma volleys, missile salvos in tight spreads. It was no surgical strike. It was brute fury, aimed to cripple, to kill, to sow fear. Dominion shields flared. The first dreadnought in line staggered under the assault, its forward plates buckling. On the Revenant's bridge, alarms screamed as return fire hammered the hull. One battery exploded in a shower of sparks. Deck plating buckled. Secondary reactors flickered. Grant stood amid the chaos, unflinching. "Keep firing!" he roared. More impacts shook the ship. A Dominion lance battery burned straight through the port side, gutting an entire section. Hull breach alarms echoed. "Structural failure imminent," Juno warned. Grant grinned savagely. "Let them come closer." And they did. 2 Dominion dreadnoughts moved in for the kill, flank batteries opening up. They had him bracketed. Then, at point-blank range, Grant triggered the final gambit. A core surge detonation in the forward reactors, an old Terran trick, forbidden and reckless. The surge blasted outward, not as a clean explosion but as a wave of hard radiation and gravitational shear. Too close for the Dominion ships to evade. The lead dreadnought's shields shattered. Its hull twisted violently, venting entire decks into space. The second ship veered off, half-blinded. The bridge shook so hard Grant was thrown to one knee. Blood trickled from his temple. He wiped it away with a snarl. "Status?" Juno's voice was strained. "Catastrophic damage sustained. Engines failing. Weapons depleted." He rose, staggering, staring at the burning wreckage on the grid. A Dominion dreadnought crippled. Another heavily damaged. And still, more enemy ships were coming. He could feel it. This was no longer about a single battle. This was about fear. In the Dominion command net, whispers spread. Is it alone? How can it still be moving? Are there more of them? High Lord Kareth heard them. His claws dug into the armrests of his throne. Doubt. It was spreading like a disease. He knew what he had to do. He would crush this human himself, personally, or lose everything. "Bring me to the front," Kareth snarled. "I will watch this ape die with my own eyes." Back aboard the Revenant, Grant wiped the blood from his face, breathing hard. Hull breaches, reactor instability, death imminent. But his voice remained steady. "Juno, prepare the last failsafe." The AI was silent for a moment. Then, "Failsafe arming. Are you certain?" Grant looked into the void, at the incoming Dominion armada, and whispered, "Let them remember us. Even if it's the last thing they ever do." The failsafe was ancient, a relic from a time when humanity had feared annihilation more than victory. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. No grand beam, no planet killer. It was worse. A core cascade, a deliberate breach of the singularity reactor. If triggered, the Revenant would implode in a gravity storm that could tear apart everything within hundreds of kilometers. Ships, debris, even space-time itself. It was a weapon of last breath. A final curse upon those who thought humans would ever go quietly. Grant stood at the battered bridge console, blood still seeping from a cut above his brow. Around him, the ship trembled, alarms blaring. Atmosphere vented from shattered conduits, fires guttered in broken panels. And yet, he was calm, not resigned, determined. Failsafe charged, Juno confirmed. Detonation will result in complete reactor collapse. No known vessel will survive within blast radius. Grant's fingers hovered over the activation key. Hold, he ordered. Not yet. Let them see me. Let them understand. Outside, the Dominion fleet tightened its formation. 4 intact dreadnoughts, dozens of support ships, a wall of iron and plasma closing in. At their center now sat the Dominus Ascendant itself, High Lord Kareth's flagship, bristling with weapons, a symbol of Dominion power. From his throne, Kareth watched the burning revenant with cold eyes. Broadcast to the ape, he commanded. Open a direct channel. A crackling voice cut through the revenant's failing comms. Human, I am High Lord Kareth. You have fought well, but you are beaten. Surrender your vessel. Submit to the Dominion. Your death need not be without honor. Grant laughed, a raw, rasping sound. He opened the channel, voice harsh with smoke and blood. Honor? You slaughtered my world. You bought my leaders like cattle, and now you want surrender? There is no surrender left in us. A pause on the line. Kareth's voice came back, colder. Then you will die, ape, alone, forgotten. Grant's eyes burned. Forgotten? You'll remember me every time you see this scar in your fleet. You'll remember that one human ship, one man, bled you dry. He cut the transmission. Juno's voice returned. Multiple weapons locking on. Incoming mass driver volleys. No avenue of escape. Grant's hand clenched into a fist. Good, he whispered. Let them come. He looked one last time at the battered display, Earth's emblem still faintly etched in the corner, the old eagle of humanity. For Earth, for those they betrayed, for those they forgot. His hand slammed down on the activation key. The failsafe began its countdown. Kareth's sensors spiked. The Dominion fleet's alarms howled. Energy surge detected. Catastrophic levels. Impossible. Their core is overloading. Kareth shot to his feet. Back off. Full reverse. Now. But it was too late. Inside the Revenant, as the core tore itself open, Grant stood alone amid the collapsing bridge. The gravity storm was forming, space folding, light bending. The Dominion ships tried to run, but the pull was relentless. Hull plates twisted. Dreadnoughts began to fracture. Fighters were swallowed whole. Kareth's own flagship struggled against the tide, its engines burning at full power. On his throne, Kareth watched in mounting horror as his fleet, was ripped apart. And in the heart of it, the last thing the Dominion would see was a single human silhouette, standing defiant as the storm consumed him. Grant smiled through the blood. Remember us. The Revenant vanished in a blinding collapse. The gravity storm detonated outward, tearing Kareth's nearest ships apart. Dreadnoughts crumpled, crews screamed. The Dominion formation shattered as surviving vessels scattered in disarray. And in the silence that followed, where once a mighty Dominion fleet had stood, there was only wreckage. Across the galaxy the story spread, on black market channels, whispered by smugglers, picked up by frightened governors. A lost human warship. 20,000 years gone, returned, fought alone, and bled the Dominion's finest dry. They had thought humans extinct. Now, they feared their return. The wreckage drifted for days. Twisted hulks of Dominion dreadnoughts tumbled slowly in the void, caught in the lingering gravitational eddies from the Revenant's death. Escape pods floated among the debris, many disabled or cracked open by the storm. And everywhere, silence. No victory songs, no triumph, just the cold, black emptiness of space, and the shadow of what had happened. On the Dominus Ascendant, High Lord Kareth's flagship limped away from the battlefield. Its hull was fractured in 3 places. Entire decks had been vented. Power flickered across the main bridge. Kareth himself sat hunched in his chair, one arm burned, blood seeping from a gash across his temple. He could still see it, that cursed human, standing defiant in the heart of the storm, a single man, a single ancient warship. And yet, he had bled them. His fleet was shattered, his command was disgraced, and worse, word was spreading. It began in whispers across Dominion space. Merchant vessels caught fragments of the final transmissions, the Revenant's last broadcast, Grant's final words. We remember. Smugglers passed the story in backwater stations. Pirate crews spoke of a human dreadnought that had crippled a Dominion armada. And soon, even the lesser races, oppressed, taxed, ruled by the Dominion's iron grip, began to murmur. If one ship could do that, if they're not extinct, if more are out there. In the Dominion's political core, on Vokar Prime, the High Council gathered in a state of crisis. Kareth stood before them, wounded, humiliated. It was one ship, one man. He caught us unprepared. It is no threat to our order. But the councillors were not convinced. Your fleet was destroyed. One hissed. By a relic. Another leaned forward, voice cold. And now the outer colonies speak of human vengeance, of Earth's return. Fear spreads. Kareth slammed a clawed fist on the table. Then we crush that fear. We find whatever nests they've hidden in, and we burn them out. All of them. The council fell to whispers. But beneath the bravado, even Kareth felt the truth clawing at his mind. It wasn't just about the Revenant. It was about what it represented. Humanity had not forgotten. And they had not forgiven. In the lawless sectors beyond Dominion space, the effect was even stronger. On the pirate station Drayax Hollow, a grizzled human mercenary named Marcus Hale stared at the intercepted reports. He hadn't heard a Terran military code in 2 decades. Now one had screamed across every channel. He turned to his crew, half human, half alien scum, and said quietly, "Get the old warbirds ready." I think Earth's ghosts are waking up. In the ruins of abandoned human colonies, deep in forgotten systems, automated beacons stirred. Buried caches came online. Old AI cores flickered with new data. And in the minds of the few scattered survivors, mercenaries, smugglers, exiles, one truth burned. One man had done it. One ship had bled the unbreakable. If they could do it again, if they could rebuild even a fraction of what humanity once was, the Dominion would tremble. Far from the wreckage site, in a black ops chamber beneath the Dominion capital, a young intelligence officer brought a new report to his handler. A faint signal. A transmission piggybacked on the Revenant's last burst, traced to deep space coordinates far beyond Dominion reach. Another human? The handler asked, eyes narrowing. The officer swallowed. Unknown. But the signal was tagged, with the Revenant's own encryption. The handler stared at the screen. Grant Miles had been a ghost. But ghosts did not fight alone. The coordinates traced from the Revenant's final signal pointed deep into the Orion fringe, a stretch of space the Dominion rarely entered. Too unstable, too far from reliable control. But not empty. Scattered throughout the fringe were old Terran listening posts, long thought dead, their crews abandoned or gone rogue after Earth fell. Some had become pirate havens, others tombs. But a few remained awake, and now something in the signal had stirred them. On a battered freighter called the Iron Shadow, Marcus Hale read the decrypted message for the 10th time. Coordinates, encrypted fallback orders. A Terran command code older than he was, but valid. Only a handful of people still alive could even recognize it. Hale was one of them. Former Terran Special Forces dishonorably discharged when the Council collapsed. He'd spent years smuggling, drinking, trying to forget. But now his veins burned with purpose again. He looked at his crew, half orphans of the Dominion, half battle-scarred humans like him. "This isn't just some relic," he said, voice hard. Miles was signaling survivors. One of the younger crew, a wiry gunner named Kellen, spoke up. "You think there's still a fleet out there?" Hale's smile was grim. Not a fleet, but a fight. Meanwhile, in Dominion High Command, Kareth's fury deepened. The Intelligence Directorate's latest report had arrived. Nearly a dozen fringe colonies had gone dark in the last 72 hours. Not attacked, but withdrawn. Smuggling ships rerouting, pirate groups going silent. And everywhere, whispers. Humanity is returning. Kareth summoned his top warlords. "We must strike first," he growled, "before this cancer spreads." "But where?" one asked nervously. "We do not know where they gather." Kareth slammed a claw on the star map. "Then we burn everything. The fringe, the old colonies, any sector with a trace of Terran code. No tolerance, no mercy." There were uneasy glances around the chamber. Even for the Dominion, this was desperation. But no one dared defy him. On the edge of Dominion space, in the drift systems, Hale's Iron Shadow linked up with two other ships, old Terran corvettes crewed by exiles and mercenaries. When they met in the void, there was no ceremony, just harsh greetings and old war hands checking battered weapons. Hale addressed them plainly. "You've heard the chatter. Miles didn't die for nothing. The Revenant showed this galaxy we're not finished." He pointed to the nav chart, coordinates still pulsing in his console. "Something called us. An old fallback cache, maybe more. We go in, we regroup. And if there's a fight to be had, we make the bastards pay." The old soldiers among them nodded grimly. No illusions of victory, just the chance to strike back. At the same time, a hidden listening post, Relay Station Echo 7, deep in an abandoned Terran sector, flickered online. Its AI core had been dormant for 19,822 years, but the Revenant's final burst had triggered an ancient failsafe, Project Ashes. The AI's voice echoed through the empty station. "Directive received. Initiating dormant fleet beacon, updating all surviving Terran combat protocols." Lights flared in deep storage bays, and in a hidden bunker, old warships, small but functional, began charging reactors. Autonomous drones spun up targeting routines. Weapon systems blinked to life. Earth's grave was not entirely cold. In the Dominion capital, Kareth prepared for full mobilization. But even as his war fleets gathered, reports of unrest grew. On mining worlds, human slaves whispered of the Revenant. On fringe colonies, human mercenaries began to vanish, off to unknown rendezvous points. And in the back of every Dominion leader's mind, a question they dared not speak. If one ship could do this, what if more survived? Kareth stared out from his throne, eyes burning. "This time," he vowed, "we exterminate them." But in the dark corners of the galaxy, war drums were beating. And for the first time in 20,000 years, humanity was waking up. The old fallback beacon led Marcus Hale's convoy to a forgotten system, Ganiros Reach, nothing but a dying star, asteroid fields, and a scattering of debris from wars no one remembered. Except something was here. A Terran listening array, buried in an asteroid, came online the moment they entered orbit. Receiving handshake. Kellen said from the Iron Shadow's nav console, voice tight with disbelief. "It's Terran military code, genuine." Hale stared at the pulsing signal. His chest felt like iron. This was real. They weren't chasing ghosts anymore. Inside the ancient base, a skeletal AI flickered to life, another remnant of Project Ashes. "Recognized. Human military command. Survivors detected. Activating fallback protocols." Doors groaned open. Inside, old stockpiles, munitions, repair drones, data cores, enough to outfit a small strike fleet, if they could wake it all. Hale looked over his ragtag crews, veterans, smugglers, exiles, mercenaries. "We won't match the Dominion fleet for fleet," he told them bluntly. "But that's not the fight. The fight is in their heads now." He slammed a fist into his palm. "They fear us. They fear what one ship did. Now we give them reason to fear more." And across the sector others answered the call. Old human sleeper cells, hidden supply caches, exiled warlords long thought dead. In secret channels a phrase began to echo, "For the Revenant." Kareth felt it. Despite his purge orders, despite his war fleets moving to burn the fringe, resistance spread faster than fire. Entire colonies went dark. Human sympathizers sabotaged Dominion shipyards. Slaves rose in bloody revolt on mining worlds. And everywhere, those cursed words spread. "For the Revenant." Kareth gathered his inner circle. "No more subtlety," he growled. "We unleash the fleet, glass their colonies, kill their sympathizers. Extinction this time, truly." But even as he spoke, reports came in. Another Dominion cruiser ambushed in the drift. A command station sabotaged by human operatives. Smuggler routes flooded with old Terran weaponry. In hidden bunkers, Hale's forces grew. The Iron Shadow now flew in formation with half a dozen restored Terran corvettes, ugly, battle-scarred, but deadly. They weren't a fleet. Not yet. But they were enough to bleed the Dominion. In one of the newly restored war rooms, Kellen looked up from intercepted comms. "Dominion's pulling ships from the core sectors," he reported. "They're spooked." Hale grinned. "Good. That's what we want." He leaned over the star map, flashing with target worlds. Strike, retreat, strike again. This would not be a war of fronts. It would be a war of knives in the dark. Across the galaxy, human voices rose again. On slave worlds, riots. In Dominion-aligned colonies, terror bombings. In the fringe, open battle. The Dominion responded with mass slaughter, but too late. The idea had already spread. Humanity had survived. Humanity would fight. Kareth sat alone in his war chamber, claws digging deep grooves into the armrests of his throne. "Grant Miles," he whispered. That name had become a curse among his officers, the ape who had started it all, the ghost they could not kill. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, where Dominion eyes could not see, Hale raised a battered old flask in a toast. "To Miles," he said, "to the Revenant." Around him, scarred veterans and hungry young fighters echoed it. "For the Revenant!" And so it began. A war long delayed. A people once broken, now risen in shadow. For 20,000 years, humanity had been silent. Now, they would make the stars remember them in fire and blood.